Okay. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Cabinet on the 11th of July, 2022. Have we got any apologies this morning?
Apologies received from Councillor Tim Adams.
Thank you. Just before we start, I'd like to bring item 10 forward to just out of members' questions, because I'm aware that Councillor Seward's got to leave for a funeral, if that's okay with everybody. Very good, thank you. And can I welcome Councillor Brown to Cabinet as new portfolio holder for planning, and thank John Toy for his service in the last year, his valuable service to Cabinet. Thank you. I don't intend to read through the minutes, but I'm open to any corrections. Does anybody give any corrections to last meeting's minutes? No? In that case, can I have someone propose the minutes, please? Councillor Gay, second. Councillor Shives, thank you. Do we? Sorry. Okay. Thank you. You got it? Yeah. Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. Do we have any public questions or statements? No. Items of urgent business, I'm not aware of any. No, good. Any declarations of interest today? No, thank you. And I'll take members' questions as we go through, if that's okay with everybody. Yes, Councillor Fredericks.
Thank you very much. Good morning, members. Could we have the lights off as they're flickering?
I'm fine with the lights off. Everybody else fine with the lights off? Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Emma.
It's not the lights, it's me. Okay, so if there are no members' questions, can I suggest we move on to item 10, and Councillor Seward, will you present, please? Could you put your microphone on, please? Thank you.
Bringing this particular item forward. If there's any detailed questions, then we'll have to go, as you will recognise, into private business. There's two recommendations in this paper. One is for a 50-year lease on land for the inshore lifeboat at Munsley Promenade. I fully support the recommendation. Don't think I need to say very much other than that the valuable service that the Munsley inshore lifeboat and the lifeboat station there provides throughout the year. This will provide stability and security for them for a long period, and therefore I welcome it. The second recommendation relates to the Beeston Putting Green in Sheringham, and this land being purchased by Sheringham Town Council. The reason for this is set out in paragraph 3.2. The site's in need of investment to ensure recreational use of the site can continue in the future. Due to the current short-term licence arrangements, any investment into the site has not been deemed viable, and therefore is proposed to dispose of the freehold of the land at a market value to the Town Council so that the necessary investment can be made. That seems to me a sensible approach. It's something that I understand the Town Council also wishes to happen, and therefore I propose that recommendation. So those are the two recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Seward. Anybody have any questions? Or Councillor Fitch-Tillett?
Yeah, I would just like to say I very much welcome the support to Munsley Lifeboat. Without lifeboats along our coast, people would be in danger, as with shipping. Thoroughly support the recommendation.
Are you prepared to second recommendation? Thank you. Any other questions on this? In that case, can we take a vote? All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much, Councillor Seward. Recommendations from overview and scrutiny. I note Councillor Dixon's not here today, but he is happy for these to go forward. There's nothing he wants to add. Has anybody else got any comments on these? Very good, then can we note that recommendation to Cabinet? Thank you. Officer delegated decisions, May to June. Steve, anything you want to say on this? Sorry.
It's just to confirm that this is a statutory report that just comes through on a regular basis, just to update members on delegated decisions that have been taken in previous months. It's self-explanatory, hopefully, and these will then be reported onto Overview and Scrutiny Committee and then published on the website as well.
Okay. Does anybody have any comments they'd like to make on delegated decisions? Councillor
Well, I'm
Sir.
just pleased it's being published on the website so that it's clear, it's transparent, and any member of the public can know if these exemption certificates are being used, what they're being used for, and what the amount is.
Thank you. Anybody else? Very good. So now I'll move on to item 9, levelling up fund round 2. I believe we've got 2 reports, and the first one is from Steve Hems. If you'd like to go ahead, please.
Thank you. Morning, members. So I'm going to give you a fraction of background. So this is around the Levelling Up Fund round 2. So North Norfolk is a priority 1 area for that fund, and there are the ability to apply for constituency bids. That is 1 per parliamentary constituency. North Norfolk are looking at putting in 2 bids, 1 within the North Norfolk constituency and 1 within the Borderland constituency. The applications are via a portal, which was due to be launched on the 31st of May, but due to, I think, technical difficulties with its development has been delayed. And the government announced either on the 30th of June or the 1st of July that the submission deadline of the 6th of July had been postponed to an unspecified date, but they've stated that when it is launched, local authorities will then have 2 weeks to put their bid in. So at the moment, we're a bit in limbo in terms of that submission, but obviously the bids have been predominantly worked up, and we're using that time to improve them further. As of this morning, that portal wasn't live, so we don't know when that will be. We'd arranged a special cabinet meeting on the 4th of July, as you will have been aware, but obviously with the delay to the portal and that submission deadline, we've cancelled that. And this is the item we brought before you today. So the purpose this morning is to share the bids with Cabinet to get you to sign off or agree the principle of submitting the bids and the basis of them. So I'm going to cover off the Fakenham bid, the Fakenham Leisure and Sports Hub, or as it's known, Flash, because Linda likes those bits. Anyway, so the proposal is around an extension to the Trap Lane current sports and fitness centre to provide swimming pool, a 25-metre 4-lane pool with a movable floor to provide learner facilities, associated village change, wet side changing rooms, and changes to the existing internal structure, including an extension to provide a new fitness suite and internal arrangements so we can fit in various aspects that facilitate that wet side change. And also to provide a 3G pitch to the north of the centre on the existing recreation field that's there. So you can see on the screen the visualization of the first visualization of outside. So if you looked above where it says Fakenham, you can see that slightly domed roof. That is the existing sports centre, sports and fitness centre, which sits behind and is retained. So in front, in the white section, you've got the fitness suite, and the clad part of the building is the swimming pool. Can you move to the next slide for me? It's just another visualization. So obviously the car park area out front is existing, some of the existing car park. There's also currently on that part of the site a pavilion which will form part, will be taken down and form part of the car park in these proposals. And then the third one is of just an internal visualization of the inside of the pool, which I have to say on a day like this looks quite appetizing, doesn't it? Quite appealing. Those are subject obviously to change as we, in terms of visualizations, as we do go through the design and build phase if we're successful with the bid. Next slide. So this is, I know it's quite small, but this is the sort of intended layout, plan layout. So the bits that are in sort of the buff colour are parts of the existing centre that are not changing as part of the proposals. And then the orange parts are obviously part that are being altered or upgraded. And the existing fitness suite is basically being turned into a multi-purpose room, predominantly because where the village change is, which is over on the right-hand side of the orange part of the image, that is going to be the wet side changing room. That's the current multi-purpose sort of dance studio room. And we're also providing a community room into the lower part. So that's in order to facilitate some of the loss associated with the pavilion building. The blue is obviously the pool, and as you can see, it's 4 lanes. There is an access, which is a water ramped access, so it's accessible. And in the village change, there will be a changing places, or planning for a changing places toilet. So it will be fully accessible. There's some spectator seating being included. And then the purple area that's shown on there is the extension that allows the new access area and reception, office, etc., with some seating. And to the south part of that is the new fitness suite, which is slightly increased on the current number of fitness stations that are in there. So that's the layout of the actual centre itself. And then if you go to the next slide, and this shows the site. So you've got the existing and proposed at the bottom, the 3G pitch, and then the cricket pitch, which is already on the site, but further down to the south of the site and will be relocated to the north. Although there is some intention on the part of the cricket club that they want to relocate that away from this site as part of their desire or their aspirations in any case, but that is currently part of the process. And then we have obviously extended the car parking up to into the current recreation field, just to make sure that we have a sufficient number of parking spaces there. We're also including with the bid an amount of carbon reduction measures. So they will be going both into retrospective fit into the existing facility to improve the thermal and carbon performance of that building, but also some measures or quite a lot of measures are intended into the new build in order to mitigate as much of the carbon as we can, because running a swimming pool is not overly carbon friendly from that point of view. So we're trying to mitigate as much as we possibly can. We haven't within the bid specified those. We've included an allowance. The reason for that is we want to be able to design that to be the most effective and efficient that we can at the time that we're designing it, so that we can try and generate the most benefit possible. So that's the site plans for you. So in terms of the preparation of the bid, we've used the same team basically that were involved in the design and construction, or design and planning for the reef, FMG. They are very experienced both here and nationally, and they have been been developing effectively the evidence and business plans that support the bid, using their experience and knowledge. Part of that was consultation. So we went out to public consultation. We got in a week, just over a week, we got over 1,000 responses to that consultation. They were overwhelmingly positive in terms of the public. We had a few that were against it, predominantly on the basis of traffic impact, etc., in the area. We had some that were neither for nor against, who basically wouldn't have used the facility and therefore weren't bothered. But I think of the 1,039 responses that we got, over 1,000 were positive in support of it. They also undertook stakeholder engagement, and that was all positive and supportive of the development. In terms of cost, so obviously this is indicative and based on the intention of around the bid. We haven't yet gone out to procurement. We won't until we're successful in the bid, but it's just over £10 million worth of investment. In terms of match funding, the government suggests that a 10% match funding contribution is desirable. It's not essential, but they specify it's desirable. And so for that, we are looking at Fakenham Town Council, who are obviously landowners and therefore will be contributing land value into the proposal. We are looking for we'll be applying for Football Foundation funding for the 3G pitch. The 3G pitch is identified on the strategic needs assessment, and so it's one of the pitches that they are very keen to provide within the market towns of North Norfolk. And although we haven't finalised the position, that obviously there is an opportunity that potentially North Norfolk might look to make a contribution towards the cost. And what the intention is when we've finalised and worked up all the figures, I think we'll look at the full council, bring a paper to full council on 27th of the month. Just a flag to members, obviously running a swimming pool and new leisure centre as an addition is not free. It comes with a cost. And so we have asked FMG to undertake some business planning. They've done robust business planning basis. The benefit, although they're costly to run, they also attract lots of people to them. And so all in all, the business planning that they've done suggests that there would be a small, at this stage, small operating revenue cost additional to that, the current centre costs. Obviously, that would be higher in the first year because the centre will lose revenue as the build is going on. But by years 3/4, it should then be what they call a mature year, and the amount they've predicted is relatively insignificant, and there is a significant potential, I think, that it could return if we get the sort of performance that we've seen at the Reef, that we could actually see it returning a surplus. But I'm not going to be introducing any optimism bias on my part. So there would be potentially a small cost. It is all contained within the current contract surplus that the SLM, that Everyone Active, returned to the council. So you would potentially lose a small amount of that income, but you would have a facility that is effectively a swimming pool and wider facilities. That is me. I'm happy to take any questions, or do you want to do the other?
I was just going to say thank you, Steve, for the presentation. I think it's, for the avoidance of doubt, it's worth saying if we do not get these grants, these projects will not go forward. And that, we must understand that. And also, I'd just like to say a vote of thanks to the officers, because yet again, this is an unrealistic timescale. The officers have worked really hard to get these in place, and we can't take it forward. It's been a delay again. So thanks to the officers. And Steve, if you'd like to take us through the Cromer. Any questions so far? Councillor Lloyd?
I think it's quite remarkable the progress that has been made in a very short amount of time, to see these professional drawings up here and listen to the range of considerations that you've included in this is quite remarkable in the time. So I echo Councillor Kershaw's thanks to the officers on this occasion. And I hope we hear soon. Hopefully there'll be a minister in place, who knows, who can look at these bids when they come in. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Shires and then Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to ask for a point of clarity. Obviously, the constituency of Broadland overlaps to local authorities. I just wanted to understand whether or not Broadland District Council have put a bid in as well, or are intending to.
So I'm not aware that they're intending to put a bid in. Even if they were to, it's my understanding that the MP will support this as the priority 1 bid. I think Broadland is a priority 3 area. So we're not aware that they're putting anything in at this stage, but obviously the MP would support our bid as the priority 1 bid. So I think on that basis, you would hope that that would receive due weight when assessing bids.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I associate my remarks with, or support, should I say, for officers in accordance with previous remarks. I think they've worked extremely diligently to a very, very demanding time scale. And my thanks to them for that. Just a point of clarity, this cropped up in the design of the reef. Will the swimming pool intended be competition standard in terms of its dimensions or non-competition standard? Just a point of clarity, that's all. Or don't we know at this stage?
I'm afraid I can't tell you that. So the conversations that we've had with FMG and Saunders Boston's the architect have been along the lines of wherever possible work to Swim England standards. But there are some areas where it would be unrealistic to do so. But in terms of the swimming pool design, my understanding is that it is to Swim England standards. Obviously, it's 4-lane. I don't know how that impacts on competition, but it would be a 4-lane pool.
Any other questions? And Steve, would you take us through the Cromer bid, please?
Thank you, Chairman. There's a similar presentation. Thanks, Emma. So this bid is a little more complex compared to the Fakenham proposal, which is on a single site and is for a single product, i.e. Essentially a swimming pool and expansion of the sport facilities offer in Fakenham. The proposal for Cromer looks at updating, renovating and regenerating much of the clifftop public space within the town. The authority has historically spent money on protecting, conserving and retaining Cromer Pier and has spent less money on those clifftop areas, and particularly has seen a deterioration in the offer in North Lodge Park over many years. Based on changing public trends in terms of participation in bowling and putting, but also some challenges around what could be provided in certainly the hard surfaced area of North Lodge Park, against a background of financial pressures in terms of the grounds maintenance contract. So the bid proposes investment in these areas of Cromer to increase their accessibility and inclusion for people with mobility issues. The census data that was released a couple of weeks ago identified that North Norfolk district has the oldest average age profile in the country, and yet these areas are attractive to people to sit and enjoy the coastal environment. And so there are very strong reasons for looking at a programme of investment in these to retain Cromer's attraction as a visitor destination, but also as a place of residence. Cromer does have quite dense population, density. A number of the streets behind the seafront area are houses in multiple occupation or small cottage properties which have limited personal outdoor space. And so the contribution that these gardens and areas make to health and well-being of residents as well as visitors is important. Thank you, Emma. So starting from the west and working eastwards along the cliffs, it's proposed that the bid would include significant improvement and enhancement of visitor facilities at the Runton Road car park, which is the principal visitor car park that serves the town. Improves, if you could move on, Emma, again, thank you. So it would include a re-provision of the public toilets and a new visitor orientation hub with shelter and information. It would include the relocation of the coach bays from Cadogan Road car park. Cadogan Road serves the town centre as well as the tourist visitors. So what we've seen through COVID is that there is very strong demand for that car park, and there is uncertainty during seasonal times at least as to the best utilisation of spaces within that car park. So we're looking at relocating the coach parking up to Runton Road. The increased use of that space lends itself to improved traffic management within the car park area, possibly looking at a new exit further west along the Runton Road. So there is an in and an out. That would also allow better management of parking within the car park and management, particularly if we have to impose any height restrictions at any time. There is increasing demand across the district for motorhome waste disposal facilities. So we would look at including a chargeable facility there. And we would provide a new toilets with a changing place facility to support the events that take place on the carnival field. So carnival, New Year's Day fireworks, etc. And we would look at improving pedestrian links into the town centre via Runton Road and the Clifftop Gardens. And there is identified an opportunity to provide a cycle hub there, so people could hire bikes and use the car park as a base for cycling along the coast or inland from the coast. Thank you. So moving further east, we've then got the area of the Marhams and the Runton Road Gardens. You've previously had a report in front of you that talks about the council's need to re-provide the Marhams Bowling Club Pavilion, and we would look at that as an opportunity to re-provide that with some additional commercial letting space, retention of the putting offer at that location, and as we then move further east to restore and renew the sunken gardens, the Clifftop path is subject of some movement and is got paving slabs at the moment, so they are moving and present some trip hazards. We would look at moving the lighting on the Runton Road Clifftop path inland. At the moment, those lighting columns are on the cliff front. We would look at moving them to the rear of the path, the south of the path, to extend their longevity. And if you look at the picture in the bottom image, the sunken gardens paving is crazy paving or flags. We would look at renewing that, making that more accessible, restoring those sunken gardens as areas of sort of peaceful sitting, trying to address the issue of vermin and rodents which frequent that area. And we would look at new planting with water tolerant or drought resistant planting. So more about grasses and succulents rather than seasonal bedding and planting, and the areas of amenity grassland, which lawns which are costly under the contract to maintain and have been underinvested in recent times, resulting in criticism about the council's commitment to maintaining these areas. Thank you. And we're looking at the opportunity, of sensory gardens, planting, noise, some artwork, perhaps some sort of natural musical structures, artwork, which would allow increasing inclusivity in terms of the enjoyment of those areas of space. Thank you. Then we would be looking at improving access from the cliff to the beach in a number of locations along the frontage. So the white steps, the doctors, they're called doctors' steps actually in front of North Lodge Park, but it is a ramp. And then there are two informal routes down the cliff from Happy Valley and the cliff to the east of town. Those issues, they are arguably deteriorating in terms of level access, steps, railings, benches. We would also look at installing a fully accessible beach hut, which capitalises on the very popular beach wheelchairs, which the council has made available in Cromer and Sheringham, and is looking at rolling out in Munsley and Seapawling also. Thank you. And then the principal North Lodge Park area, which is owned by the District Council and does have a number of historic assets, significant asset in terms of the townscape, but is underinvested in, and I think it's fair to say has presented some challenges to the authority over a number of years in terms of its reuse. It lacks destination or any significant footfall generator, and over time has become less of a destination as we've struggled to fulfill the contract for seasonal bedding plants, and the area does look now quite tired and neglected. We've considered over a number of years potential reuse of the hard surfaced area, the former tennis courts, but obviously we've got the Cromer Lawn Tennis Club with grass courts and hard courts to the south of the town. For a while, this area was used for pedal cars as a children's play area, but I think the market or the expectation has moved on. So that site is redundant and requires repurposing. And working with the Town Council and the Friends of North Lodge Park, there are proposals to repurpose that space as a multifunctional area with shade or cover, possibly for themed markets or events that would draw people to the park in a way which they don't at the present time. A big challenge for the park is the fact that there is no parking at the east end of town, and so issues of accessibility is something that does compromise the park. The proposals do not envisage any addressing that issue by taking any green space out of the park to address that need. Thank you. And so the proposals are largely based on the ideas of the Friends of North Lodge Park to include this canopy that would provide shade in the summer over the surfaced area and shelter in the winter if you looked at some sort of Halloween themed events or a Christmas market or something like that. There would be a degree of cover. Provision of new toilets, retention of community sheds in terms of men's shed and polytunnels for inclusive health and well-being, involvement and engagement, possibly a splash pad on the former bowling green and renewed areas of planting, again, taking reference to climate change and moving away from seasonal bedding to more structural planting that provided variety in colour and change throughout the seasons. And there is potential to look at the refurbishment and repurposing of the former preschool property, which sits at the heart of the park in front of, or sorry, to the rear of the boating pond. Thank you. The final area in terms of thematic is to the far east of the town towards Happy Valley. So that's the Warren and Links Woods and Stony Hill, which are assets in the District Council's ownership. Happy Valley is slightly further to the east and is in the ownership of the Royal Cromer Golf Club. Thanks, Emma, if you could move on. So this is a natural and wild area. So there is planting regimes and management which the council's countryside team have developed in conjunction with with partners, and this would seek to extend the facilities there, possibly looking at woodland or natural play, to eco toilets and improved accessibility through a cycle or better surfaced pathway that could be used by mobility scooters, providing an alternative route to Overstrand Road. Thank you. So recognising the potential for net zero and carbon neutrality, which is difficult to demonstrate through a number of these proposals, in that they are largely passive and to do with climate change and accessibility and enjoyment. If we are able to facilitate the relocation of the coaches from the Cadogan Road car park, that site would lend itself to the provision of solar carport above the areas of parking. It isn't an area of a significant townscape value. Most of the properties back onto that car park, and it doesn't affect the setting of the town or green spaces, as would be the case at both Runton Road and the Meadow car parks in Cromer. So there would be an opportunity to provide additional electric vehicle charging points on the back of any solar carport provision at Cadogan Road. And then we would also look at Wi-Fi on the seafront and clifftop areas, public Wi-Fi, which has been very popular in other locations. And then a development of an app and some walking trails that build on the Walkers for Welcome designation, which Cromer has secured in recent years. Thank you. So the total bid value in terms of those constituent elements, 6 elements, has a value of just shy of £7.5 million. As Steve has talked about in respect of the Fakenham proposal, the whole of the North Norfolk district has been identified by the government as a levelling up priority 1 area. So we think that we are able to put a strong proposition to the government for funding. We are still working on those cost elements because construction cost inflation is rising significantly at the present time. We require, as Steve has said, it's desirable to achieve some local match funding. We believe that we've secured some match funding from the Town Council and from the Friends of North Lodge Park, and we're still looking at commitments the authority has in terms of its capital programme or revenue programme to spend in these areas, and then we would identify any deficit figure that we would need to fund, and that's the element of work which is continuing at the present time. And as Steve said, if we can quantify those, we would look to bring a report forward to full council on the 27th of July that would quantify those elements. But for the time being, we're asking for your endorsement of the principle of this project, such that if the portal opens and we need to, within that 2-week period, submit the application, we are good to go in that sense. I'm very happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Steve. Again, it goes without saying that without successful funding, this won't go ahead. But I think it's also worth mentioning that these areas are long overdue for maintenance, and if we are successful in this bid, it will take some pressure off budgets to be able to spend elsewhere in North Norfolk. So I commend it, and certainly addressing rising issues like the disposal of waste from motorhomes is something that is not a pleasant subject, but it's something we have to get to grips with. Virginia, you wanted to speak.
Thank you. I absolutely do support the Fakenham bid, but I think it would be of inestimable benefit to North Norfolk if this bid were to be achieved. And, you know, I'm not a Cromer member. There's nothing kind of parochial about this. The weakness that it always seemed to me about this was there were a lot of disparate things. But watching your presentation today and seeing your title, it seems to me very clear that if you're going with the gem metaphor, this is the setting for the gem. This is the space between the sea and the Edwardian town that needs to be knitted up again and refreshed and restored. So watching your presentation, I saw this as a series of landscapes, in fact, going along. And I think that's quite a powerful way of putting it. The other thing I would like to say is that the district can demonstrate that it already invests very heavily in Cromer, in the pier, in the entertainment. There's even a small contribution to Norfolk Museums for the museum service. So this isn't seeking funds to do things that we haven't done or should have done. It's seeking funds to reinforce what we do it better, and make it more available to visitors and to residents both. So I think that's about what I have to say. I do remember the visit to North Lodge Park. I thought the Friends proposal was a delightful proposal. I just hope that this is successful, because I think it would be very good for residents and visitors if it were. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bit of a technical question, I'm afraid. I have some concerns about the cliff top paths. They are all hard surfacing. With the additional rainfall we are getting, without a doubt, we had the wettest winter for years last year. I think by hard surfacing those paths, you will cause more runoff to the cliff. So I have a concern about that, and I just hope officers will take that away and think about it. I do realise they need to be accessible for everybody, including wheelchairs, but just think about the runoff.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wondered whether one ought to be looking again at a high revenue NNDC car park in North Lodge Park on the old tennis courts. There is a lack of parking, and I know that we did do some work on that, and I know what the local reaction was, but that would generate a fairly high, fairly huge income, I would think, all year round. There are other benefits which will obviously be going into Cromer with a lot of this, which would compensate towards them having to give up their disused tennis court. But we could make that into a really good high revenue car parking area, which would then offset obviously some of the costs that we're having to put into this particular venue. So I know it's contentious, but I don't think we should ignore it. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to make a
Well, I hear what Councillor Rest has said and was supportive of the previous proposals which the authority developed and considered. There wasn't public support for that proposal at the time, and I don't believe there would be now. So this proposal seeks to take us beyond that position. It does look at significantly improving the visitor offer in terms of parking on Runton Road, and expands the car parking spaces that are otherwise available to serve the town centre. There is a skewing of provision to the west of the town, that is absolutely understood. But I think striking that balance between the historic environment, town centre, or townscape and character of the North Lodge Park area means that that's always going to be very difficult. So the proposition, one of the questions in the levelling up application is, are there any opposition? Is there any opposition to your proposal or elements of your proposal? I think that would be counterproductive to consider that proposition again as part of this bid. So it's not part of the proposals, to answer your question directly. It's not part of the proposals that have been developed.
Councillor Withington.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm really pleased to see the bid for Cromer coming forward, even as a Sheringham member. It's interesting that we have got very similar issues, and Sheringham has been grappling with similar things and trying to bring particular programmes forward, as some of you will be aware here. What's interesting is when Councillor Gay said this is about linking things together, this is something that we've been trying to look at in Sheringham. What is missing perhaps on this bid, I feel, is an attention to the signage in the town. One of the things that we've been aware of in Sheringham is that there are several assets that we have that people just don't know are there. And I think North Lodge Park probably qualifies as one of those things in Cromer. And we've been looking at putting together a plan for monoliths and pedestrian signage across the town. And I think that would be one way that there are some fantastic assets in Cromer that people aren't aware of. And that doesn't stand out in me in this bid, that this would be a way of pulling together all of those different links. You know, the fact that Happy Valley's there, perched on the edge somewhere. You know, unless you know it's there, you don't go to it. And it's a fantastic asset for well-being for residents as well. So I think by having that kind of scheme of signage wayfinding, I think that could really enhance this project. And for me at the moment, it may well be there, but it hasn't stood out for me today. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll come to you in a second, Councillor Lloyd. Steve, would you like to come back on that one?
Yeah, so that's very strong point, Councillor Withington, and it is featured within the proposition in terms of trying to spread people beyond those core areas. So to address Councillor Est's principal point, there is less opportunity for people to park to the east of the town, and therefore footfall to that area is much less. So that the focus of the town for visitors is arguably skewed towards the Runton Road, and so those natural assets of Warren Woods and Happy Valley. So we've wrestled as an office, a team around Happy Valley, in that the space isn't technically the district council's, but if you're selling excitement and a willingness to explore, there's something taking that history and the Happy Valley name, because people used to promenade there, there used to be a shelter there. There's something more exciting and stimulating and inviting than perhaps something referred to as Stony Hill, which might be a bit more barren and more mundane in terms of its excitement and level of attraction. So signage is important. We did look at whether there was a wider narrative that we could have looked at extending the improvement of Clifftop Gardens to Sheringham and Munsley also. But the guidance was that the bid should be very geographically and thematically focused. And we have had to be very stringent, I think, in terms of looking at the economic data that underpins the proposal. And Cromer is able to demonstrate that need in terms of super output area data, in terms of levels of deprivation relative to those other locations. So we have looked at how broad we can make the bid, but it is highly competitive. To address Councillor Gay's point, we don't see these two bids being in competition with each other because of the constituency boundary issue. So there is, under the guidance, the opportunity to submit bids for each constituency within the priority 1 area, but that's not to say both of them would be successful, but they're not necessarily in direct competition themselves. So we are submitting bids for both of the areas that we're able to in North Norfolk under the guidance.
Thank you, Steve. Councillor Lloyd.
Thank you. Can I just make a suggestion with regard, you mentioned planting, structural planting, I think you used the term. I think a cherry tree walk in springtime would be absolutely lovely. It would attract people out of season to that area where they've been. You've probably seen the pictures coming out of Japan and places like that. But the power of trees shouldn't be underestimated. If you get the right mix of trees, it becomes an attraction. People will come just to witness, the trees on display.
I'm not a horticulturalist, so I'm not able to comment in that regard, but I think that there are some challenges in a maritime or marine environment as to what type of trees may be successful, and I don't know whether cherries would fall into that category, but I'm happy to take that away. If the bid is successful, we will obviously engage some professional advice in terms of garden design or advice in that regard, so that we have a quality scheme to implement. So I'm happy to take that away and to be considered further.
Thank you, Steve. Any other questions? No, thank you. There's no reason to exclude press and public. I don't think we have any private business today. So thanks